Dr. Izzy Justice here, Chief Neuroscientist at Neuro580. Again, I want to thank the CDC for allowing this platform to do these videos, bringing in neuroscience into topics that are relevant to all of us. Today I want to talk about, in a bonus way, the topic of happiness. Why am I talking about happiness? Well, if you think about it, it is one of those inalienable rights. Every human being, by virtue of being a human, has the right to pursue happiness. It is a goal that all of us have. If you think about how we have always thought about all the activities that we do in a linear way, the ultimate goal at the very end of all tasks that we do, conversations that we have, activities, is so that we feel this thing called happy. So if you look at the statistics today, and we'll start with what the problem is, there are countries around the world, there are employers around the world that actually measure that. And that number, in terms of what people think about what happiness is, has been declining pretty rapidly. In the US, 36% of people say that they are very lonely. And that number almost doubles with adults from age 16 through 25. Suicide rates since the year 2000 have exponentially risen in this country. The demographic with the highest suicide rates are teenage girls age 14 through 21. So if what all of us are pursuing is this thing called happiness, let's define it. What exactly is it? So let's look over here on this side, if you would. And I'm going to give you some activities. And on your own, I want you to say, where do you think this goes? Is it something that's related to happiness? Or is it something that makes me happy in the moment? So one way to understand what this thing called happiness is to be able to draw a distinction between things that make us happy versus things that are actually related to our long-term happiness. All right. Activity number one, you decide which column does it go to. I buy a brand new pair of shoes. Is that happy or happiness? I think most of us would say that that's happy. Okay. I buy a brand new car. Is that happy or happiness? I think most of us would say that that would be on the happy side. I get a promotion at work. Is that happy or is that happiness? Again, I think if you thought about it harder, I think most of us would say that that is happy. What if I buy a bigger car or a fancier car? Is that happiness or is that happy? I think most of us would say that that was happy. What if I have dinner with some friends that I haven't seen in many, many years? Is that happy or happiness? I think now we might say, I think that's happiness. It's an experience. I'm alive. I'm engaged with something. What if you see a person that you haven't seen in a very long time, or you have a good conversation with your child or your significant other? Is that happy or is it happiness? So very quickly, you'll begin to see that there's a difference between a dopamine hit and a serotonin level in your brain. These dopamine hits are things that make us happy in the moment. Typically, they're things that we purchase or we can purchase. Whereas happiness are related more to something experiential, where your full capacity of your senses are involved. One of the questions that I often ask people is, tell me about the best meal you've ever had. You know what they say? They will rarely describe that meal. Instead, they'll describe who they had the meal with. They'll describe where they had the meal with. And it's typically associated with something significant at that point in their lives. So your favorite meal didn't really have to do with the food. It had more to do with the memory that was created in that environment. So our studies have shown that when people feel happy and experience happiness, there is a distinction between those two. One lasts much, much longer. It's a bigger inventory in our brain. I've been talking about inventory a lot in this video series. Experiential activities that mean a lot to us they last longer. Their shelf life in our brain, in the hippocampus part of the brain, is significantly longer. And in the happiness state, we're living more in the green because our senses are fully activated. We do things, all activities, because in that moment we're experiencing something, a rush of something that makes us feel a very low frequency in our brain, that green brain, that makes us live in the proverbial present moment. So let's talk now about solutions. One of the things that we have found is that happiness is less about the things that you do to make you happy and more about things that you do to reduce your stress. Let me explain that again. Happiness is less about things that you are doing to make you happy and more about eliminating things that stress you. Why? Because stress carries with itself very higher frequency in the brain. When you are stressed, your brain is processing a lot of consequences, a lot of narratives, a lot of stories. Each one of them is extremely high. Our brains are spiking. And when your brain is living in that state, these little happy things that we do, they temporarily reduce them. You are much better off finding ways to reduce the overall stress in your life. Now, there are certain kinds of stress that we cannot control. What if someone that you love is sick? What if you're sick? What if you don't have a certain amount of resources to sustain the life that you want? So those kinds of stresses we cannot do much about. But there are many others that we can do a lot about. We've talked about them. What do you do in the morning hour of your routine? What do you do before you leave work and go to home? We've talked about all the things that you can do to get your brain to green. We've talked about taking breaks in your workday so you can stay in the green mode by spiking them all down. We've talked about neurohacking ourselves. In other words, I'm trying to argue that the more that you do to reduce the overall stress in your life, the more of happiness you will experience. So the other thing that we talked about is that if you do just 1 or 2 things per day, the most important 1 or 2 things per day to the best of your ability, that in fact has a trickle-down effect to your brain because it lowers the overall EEG on other things that you're doing. So happiness is not, let me do everything really well. Let me pick the 1 or 2 times during the day, a personal one, a work one, whatever it may be, the game times that I talked about earlier. If I can perform very well when I need to, what does that do for my confidence? The neuroscientific definition of confidence, in my view, is simply when presented with a challenge, your brain can access the right inventory. It'll remember an article that you read, a video that you saw, a past experience that is relevant to the context at hand. I've done this before. I know how to do it. I got this. Let's go. That's what confidence is. What is resilience? Resilience is nothing more than when something negative happens to you, your brain can access something that it has done before that allows you to feel confident, and now you say, I got it. When you cannot access the magic of your brain, then we say you don't have resilience, you're unhappy. So picking out the times in your day when you need to be your best and getting to green and making other people green is a huge part of being happy. And the last tip that I want to give you is to green other people. All kinds of studies have shown that compassion and acts of kindness have significant impact on the gray matter of the brain. We think that when we're kind to somebody else, when we show empathy and compassion, that we're helping them. That is true, we are. But we're having a bigger impact on the state of our brain. We have measured this. Even post-mortem, I have had people describe to me something kind that they did for somebody else and measured their brain activity. And you can see the brain go to a very calm state. You can see the change in their face as they move themselves towards green. Acts of kindness that we perform for others is an amazing brain gift. Our brain loves it. It's part of the bedrock where a lot of the other memories sit. So, happiness, the ultimate pursuit, is less about happy things and activities, and it's more about activating our brain and being present in the moment. Pick just 1 or 2 times. Green as many people as you can. Kindness and acts of compassion are a gift to you more than they're a gift to somebody else. Thank you.